when I was 28 years old, someone gave me one of those email list things that you need to do before you're 30. And one of the things on the list was to speak your truth publicly before you turn 30. I will be 39 in November, so I'm a little late, but I'm checking this off of my list today. And for me, this is going to be extremely therapeutic because, as Byron tried to say, I handle communications for the Office of Juvenile Affairs, so I speak on behalf of people, which gives me an opportunity to hide in the shadows of my own opinions and my true feelings. I can be very, very guarded in those instances, so for me to stand in front of people and just talk about myself is a little awkward. But I'm going to check it off the list today. You all get to do it with me, right? Okay, so a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Texas. I moved to Oklahoma to attend Langston University. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism. Moved back to Texas and worked in television for a couple of years, then moved back to Oklahoma and anchored the morning show at Channel 5 for about 4 years. After that, I was called to serve with Oklahoma City Public Schools, handling communications and community relations. And then in June of last year, I joined the Office of Juvenile Affairs, a state agency, and I've been there working communications and policy and even some legislative work this year for the very first time. And we've been passing some bills to impact the lives of kids, which is really, really exciting. And one thing that a lot of people know is when it comes to work, I'm not really fearful of things. I feel like I can research, I can talk to people and figure things out. But there was one issue personally that fear really kept popping up and preventing me from doing what God intended for my life to be. So that's what I'm talking a little bit about today. So first I want to start with my grandmother. She grew up in Houston, Texas. My mom often tells me the story that it stuck with me forever. My mom left her then abusive boyfriend after he broke her pelvis. She later found out she was pregnant. And my grandmother was always very cold, hard, emotionless. And people would often say she just didn't like kids. She did not ever want to be a mother. So when my mom went into labor, she drove her to the hospital and said, I was not there when you made the baby. I'm not going to be here when you deliver it. I'm going to work. And she opened the door and walked into the hospital. Gave birth by herself because that's the type of personality my grandmother had. Very cold. So my mother always had concerns of, am I ever really going to be a good mom because I didn't have a good example? But little did she know her middle daughter, me, always had that fear of, because I'm not really too comfortable around kids, maybe I have a little bit of that coldness and meanness within me. So let me try to suppress some of those feelings I have about kids because I would hate for that to come back up because it's in my bloodline is what I would think. So making sure that what happened in the past within my family would not happen to me in the future, it was something I can control by just suppressing any feelings that I would ever have to be a mother. There's a way to not deal with family demons that I'm sure each and every one of us have. Also, let's talk a little bit about vulnerability. So, as I mentioned, I was a reporter for, I would say, 9-10 years. Enjoyed a lot. But when you're a reporter, oftentimes you are dealing with the bad stuff. So I was the one sitting in court for victim impact statements when a dad was screaming at a guy who killed and raped his daughter. I was sitting in the living room of homes of a grandmother who did not know her grandson was behind the car when she ran him over and killed him. I was there on the scene when a mother found out that her son had been decapitated in a car accident. The raw emotion, the screams, the pain that I was able to see firsthand, that level of vulnerability to love someone so much and then have them taken away, not anything I want to deal with. So I'm just going to suppress that and avoid it. And any feelings I ever have to be a mother, I can't deal with those emotions. And also in the news business, you do one thing on Monday, see something terrible. Well, all the firefighters and IMSA workers, they go to counseling, we go to work the next day. Suppress those same feelings and those terrible things that you saw. There's no counseling, there's no help, there's get back to work. So you never get in touch with your feelings. So I became a very hard person, much like my grandmother, just because of the situations I was in. So another reason why I can't even begin to think about entering into motherhood because I'm emotionless. I've seen the pain that motherhood and being a parent can bring, and I've also got those family demons. So no matter what I have bubbling inside me that may want to go down that path, that fear is going to rear its ugly head and prevent me from doing that. Spent most of my life wearing that as a badge. Kids, not me. People would take pictures of me when I would hold babies because they thought it was such a rarity. I would tell people I don't like anything that crawls, not insects or babies. Because that was easy. It's safe. It's safe not to be vulnerable or to really accept what you're fearful of. But then, God showed me that there's not always a reason to be fearful of things because He's always in control. So one thing that I was also very fearful of is those little tiny humans that turn into adults. You pour your whole life into them. You love them. You give them everything that they need. And then they still make bad decisions. And then they still do things that you don't want them to do. And I am a control freak. And so for this tiny little human not to listen to what I want him or her to do, and for me to then pour everything I have, and then they turn 21 and turn into those kids that I covered in the news, oh, no, 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 no. That's where that fear popped in again. I don't have control of that person once they leave. And that's something that I just could not deal with. So let's, again, suppress those feelings. But as I said, God has a way of telling you that you're not ever really in control. So I met a wonderful man here in Oklahoma City, got married. And one day we were driving home from Texas. And while I was there, we looked at a dog on Craigslist, and I really wanted this dog. And Robert was like, no, we're not getting a dog. So we did not speak from Fort Worth all the way to the Cracker Barrel racetrack in Denton. Total silence. And I looked over to him and I said, I just don't understand why you will not let me have a dog. He said, I don't understand why you would not let me have a baby. And I cried from Denton to the state line. Because at that moment, I knew I couldn't keep running. I love this man. And initially, I thought, well, I'm going to have to get a divorce. Because this is not going to work out. I would even go back and tell my friends, like, I think I'm going to have to leave Robert because he wants a kid. And I don't even get it. I don't even understand. We had this conversation. And he said that he did. And I said, I did not. I thought we had understanding. And this is not working out. But with those words, he told me that I was going to have to come to grips with my fears and some long-standing demons that I had in my life. So I went to counseling, which everybody should do. It's fantastic. And my counselor told me that what I was really fearful of is losing control. I'm a person that has it together. I check things off my list. I deliver at deadlines. But this little thing is something outside your control. You mean to tell me they could still make bad decisions? You mean to tell me that I don't know what's going to happen, what the end result's going to be? You mean to tell me I don't know what's going to happen to this child if something terrible happens? Do I have the emotional reserves to handle this person? I feel completely out of control. And then in 2015, a slap across the face. So I had a miscarriage. So with that one single instance, it's a slap in the face to show you never really had control. I give its life and I take it away. And all those emotions that you suppress, oh, they're coming. The crying, the tears, the pain that I would see on the faces of mothers and fathers in those living rooms and those couches, I could relate. I couldn't avoid it anymore. It was here. As much as I tried to suppress it, in this instant, God said, you can't run anymore. This is what you're supposed to do. I've sent you to work in a school where you could see the cute little faces and the tiny little hands and the joy that kids bring each and every day. I've sent you to work at the Office of Juvenile Affairs where you're going to see kids who all they need is a loving adult in their life and they could quite possibly make better decisions. And I think that you could be a caring adult and be a positive impact on a child's life. So within that instant, the emotions, the pain, the loss of control, I had to face. What I want to make sure that people understand is, on the surface, you may have it together, but until you come to grips with what your truth is, until you find out and stop running from what makes you scared to death. In my instance, it was losing control. I'm not sure what it is in your instance, but every single person has it. And you'll never be able to live a fulfilling life until you come to grips with what your truth is and find out a way to overcome it, to kick it in the teeth and move past it. Because now I cry more, I laugh a whole lot. Lola is in control because I'm not. My daughter is 14 months old and she's fantastic. And this is the person I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to advocate for kids, and I'm supposed to be a mom. And I tried my damnedest not to go down that path, but this is where I'm supposed to be. This is my truth. My truth is that I'm not always in control, and I don't always have it together, and I'm going to make a million mistakes today and a million more tomorrow. But I'm going to laugh, I'm going to cry, I'm going to shout, I'm going to kiss that baby girl each and every day, and I'm going to tell kids across the state of Oklahoma that you're not who your grandmother was, you're not who your grandfather was. You can be anything you want to be, but first, you got to know your truth, you got to kick it in the teeth and move past it.